Welcome, World Civ, to week one. I am putting out this video a little bit early just because I am in the middle of some transitions with my travel. You should be following up. It's important that you watch all of my announcements. This is a part of the class. So sometimes I will be saying things under the assumption that you've already watched the last videos, so I want you to keep that in mind. In any case, this week's going to be a little tricky just because I'm getting kind of acclimated to the things that I'm doing in the middle of you guys starting class. But I'm always there for my students. You guys will never suffer from something that is a glitch on my end, okay? But having said that, I just want to address a few things. Eventually, I'm going to give you an example of what the notes should look like. But most of my students find out, and I do very well with most of my students. Many of you are actually coming into my class from other classes I've had. I have a very predictable weekly schedule. There are no tricks. As a general rule, you will be having Thursday, you'll have the discussions due by midnight and notes on all of the videos, all of them. Every video that is in the module for that week, you have to write notes on. Every once in a while, I will write a note in the module video that you write more on it, watching more of a documentary or less. It'll all be very clear. You just got to pay attention to those things. Because the video notes, the whole point is that you need to prove to me that you're watching everything that I'm putting out for you to watch. Okay? So that's what I look at. When I'm looking at video notes, I'm saying, does this student convince me that they actually watched everything? Okay? Then Sundays, you're going to have your paper. And the paper is very simple and straightforward. Listen, if you don't have your textbooks in yet, and you should, but if you don't, that doesn't mean you can't do the Sunday paper. Let's make it easier for you. What I suggest that you do is you look at the Sunday, before you start any of your work each week, look at the question for the topic on Sunday. Then when you watch the video notes, you can take notes targeting the information that you would need for Sunday's paper. I do not have a problem if you take all of your notes that you've organized together and make that into a coherent paper. It's not a research paper. It's not meant to be scholarly. Again, the whole point of my assignments is for you to show and prove that you are reading and watching all the material and that you're learning something from it. Okay? That's it. That's what I'm doing. Sorry, my eyes are burning right now. Okay, so that's the weekly routine. Now, we are doing the topic of religion for this particular class. This is not a religious studies class. This is not a theology class. And there are some limitations to a class like this. Here's what it comes down to. We cover many, many civilizations, lots of different cultures. It's a little overwhelming for all of you. So I had to break down and decide what would be the best subject that could be easiest for you to mentally carry over something from each civilization. If you're claiming to be an atheist, or you're a devout Christian, a devout Muslim, whatever your religion, or not, most people have a kind of strong or they have a lot of thoughts about the topic. And if you have a lot of thoughts about the topic, then your mind, I know, is going to be more engaged with this than if I cover, let's say, the different way grain production is done in all these different cultures or something, right? Although grain is important. But the thing is, that's what it's set up for. And here's the other limitation. Just because you study the official textbook version of what a religion, let's say, if it says, well, Theravada Buddhists believe ... There's some limitations to that as well. I will discuss what I mean by that later on. I just want it to be known is that, for example, you can watch a video and you'll see a scholar of Islam, whether it's a practicing Muslim or some other academic, say that in the hadith, the text of a Muslim text, that Muslims don't listen to music. And then you'll see that there are centuries of musical traditions within the Islamic world. Well, what do you make sense of that? We'll talk about that later, okay? The bottom line is you're going to get some basic ideas about different civilizations, and then you can talk more about like what to do with all that, where the limitations that is, and where it's going to help you out to grow in knowledge about that civilization. I'll move on from that. And so here's the other thing. Some of you are going to have strong opinions about what you're reading. Again, this is not an indoctrination class. This is to learn basic historical developments from other civilizations. Now, I start with the concept of evolution. That's where the text goes. This is the last thing I want to address on this. I know from all the classes I've been teaching how sensitive a subject this is for many of my students. I grew up in a very conservative religious household myself. I'm very well aware of what this does, this kind of reaction that many of you feel when we go over this topic. Just keep in mind, in this class, you're not required to believe anything that's being taught. You're learning about what other civilizations have went through, and in this case, you're learning what the scientific community has a consensus point of view on. Okay, now why do we start here? It's kind of tricky. We're doing the beginnings of world civilizations. Well, where do we start? The Bible starts in Hebrew, Bereshit, in the beginning. Okay, but not every religious tradition starts that way. Where would we start? Or we pick out of all these different ones? Well, the secular world has an interpretation, a set of information that they've gathered to have an idea about the origins of humanity and civilization. Okay, so that's what you're learning about. You don't have to agree with this. I mentioned that in some of the lectures, but I just want to make that very clear. So just consider this a great opportunity for you to learn about why this is even believed by any particular community in the world, okay? And that's all I want to say about that. I would like to move on. Okay, so as you know, I'm also going to be trying to incorporate different aspects of my world travels right now into the class on some of the announcements. But for now, we'll just leave it here. I hope all is well. I am slow to emails right now, but I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you write to me through Canvas, that's preferable. And we'll be in touch.